wanted to give students a few minutes to write their answer to this question. I come from. Have you ever done this exercise?
I did. We did it in a professional development and we made it into a poem. Or maybe I made it into a poem.
Uh-huh.
That's fair.
Okay. Okay.
But yes, it's a very cool. We had to put a food and a scent, and there were specific things that we had to include in there, but then
Yeah,
yeah.
they didn't tell me to put a scent, but I did write about the cinnamon rolls that I remember my grandmother baking when I was,
Oh,
and
that's
how
awesome.
they smelled and how they tasted, and they had those really rough sugars on the top, those Swedish sugars that you can now get at IKEA, which
No
is
kidding.
really cool. But
Oh.
yeah, back then her sisters used to have to send them from Sweden. And I was going to read what I wrote, but I can't find my notebook. I know
Ah.
it's somewhere. I know it came home with me, but I just can't find my notebook. So I'm not going to read mine, but I thought it was a really great exercise and I thought it was a good place for students to get started. And then later on in the workshop, we can pull it back out. So come in with something to write with. I see that we've got some more people coming in now. So come in with something to write with. Write your answer to finish the sentence. I come from, and just start making a list. And I'm going to give you a really quick lecture on. You can roll your eyes and say, well, I don't really feel like doing this right now. Or you can just get it done. Because here's the thing, it's pay me now or pay me later. You're either going to be doing this work today, this weekend, this week, or you're going to put it off and you're going to do it in October while you're doing AP Calc or AP Calc BC or homecoming or Halloween. There's all kinds of things that are about to start happening and coming your way as a high school senior. And I would rather you get your essays done in the summer than once school starts in the fall. And I also wanted to give just a brief overview. We're going to talk about it again in a minute, but a brief overview of why we're starting with this soundbite. We're starting with the soundbite because it's something that you can write today. And in the process, Miss Liz and I, who I'm going to introduce here shortly, Miss Liz and I have discovered that having the soundbite is the umbrella that covers your college application process. Once you have this soundbite, once you have a personal statement, then you can move forward in the whole application with it as part of one bigger picture. Because if you don't know where you're going, it's going to be really hard to get to where it is that you want to go. And that's why we start with this. Go ahead and wrap up the sentence that you're writing right now. We're going to get started. You're going to come back to this. You're going to be working on this all week. We're going to give you lots of things to work on with this soundbite. We're also going to tell you about the book that we're using. You'll see this again later today, and you'll be able to find all of that. If this will work, we're going to keep going here. Okay, so what I want everybody to do is to fold your arms. Just fold your arms. Don't overthink it. It's not complicated. Just fold your arms. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to unfold your arms and fold them again with the other arm across the top. So your opposite arm goes on top. And I want you to put in the chat how that makes you feel to sit here with the opposite arm on the top. I want some words. How are you feeling about that? Open the chat here and look. I see uncomfortable, weird. Somebody said wrong. Okay, so I'm going to ask Miss Liz, because Miss Liz is a very highly educated person. Wrong. I'm going to ask you about the word wrong. Have you ever taken, in all your many years of college and all your college degrees, have you ever had arm folding 101? No, we've never taken arm folding 101. So there really is no wrong way to fold your arms. You can fold your arms however you want to fold your arms. But why we're talking about this is because if you perceive that this is weird or awkward or uncomfortable or wrong, then that's what's known as muscle memory. And I want to talk to you a little bit about muscle memory. We're going to start with the 4-minute mile. So it used to be that people thought that the 4-minute mile was dangerous and impossible. Okay. So just like crossing your arms, mental models they're just a way to understand. Sorry, guys, I didn't mean for there to be movement in the slide, but It's too late for me to go back and fix it. Mental models are a way to understand how something works in the real world. And they're very helpful. We use them because they explain how things work or your perception of how things work. So your perception right now is that it works to fold your arms this way, but not this way. Mental models, they're kind of an internal framework. We build them based on our experiences, our knowledge and belief, and we use them because they're helpful. They teach us that there's a set of conditions, and that set of conditions equals a rule of action. Because if you had to think about things, like if you had to think about it every time you cross the street, oh, I have to look both ways because a car might come and hit me. If you have to constantly think about all those directions, it could get really, really noisy inside your head. So we build these mental models and they help guide us, and we use them all the time. And sometimes we forget that we're using them. Mental models provide internal stability in a world of constant change. And they're simplified representations of complex systems or concepts that help us understand and reason about and predict the outcomes. We know we have to look because we don't want to get hit by a car. However, mental models can make us resistant to change, or they can make us resistant to instruction. Mental models form muscle memory. And as students, I've worked with hundreds of you, so has Miss Liz, maybe thousands between the two of us. We know that you have certain muscle memories in this essay writing process. We also know that mental models can blind us to facts or ideas, and they can make it difficult to challenge deeply held beliefs. So, what are some of your mental models? Can you think of any? I can think of one for you. Students often tell me that they're going to sit down to write a rough draft. That's a mental model. And we're going to talk about why I don't like that mental model versus following the steps in the writing process. I would rather you follow the steps in the writing process. So if I were to ask everyone here to raise their hand if they had ever worked full time to pay their rent and food and everything that they needed as a writer, I think only one of us here would raise their hand. And I can promise you that writer is following the steps in the writing process. Why? Because when you're writing for a living and you're a professional writer, the steps in the writing process make your work so much easier and more efficient. And you need that efficiency because you got to be writing a lot of stuff in order to eat. You can keep a roof over your head and eat if you're following the steps in the process. So let's look at these adjectives. These are the adjectives that came out of the exercise. And adjectives are indicators. So if you're talking to your high school counselor or your teachers who are writing letters of recommendation, your adjectives that you're using are indicators. Well, indicators of what? Well, if you're saying, I already know this, you're indicating something about yourself. And I would rather you ask the question, what can I learn from this? Do you see the difference? I want you to be showing your teachers that you're teachable. So as I'm walking through this presentation today, and I already know because I've taught a lot of students writing, and I know what kind of walls you're going to put up in front of me, and I know what kind of muscle memory you have, and I know that you don't want to follow the process. I know that you think you already know this. You do know how to write. None of you would be here in front of us applying to college if you didn't know how to write. We know you know how to write, and some of you are really good writers. I want you to ask instead, what can I learn from this? Because I can promise you this, even if you are a really good writer, we're going to talk about good writers and bad writers in a second, but even if you are a good writer, there is always something that you can learn to make yourself, to really explode yourself into the next realm of writing. You can always get better. So what can I learn from this? And instead of this won't work for me, I want you to ask yourself, how can I make this work for me? Because I know that it will work for you because I've done this so many times. Because college, okay? College is the whole point. The whole point of going to college is to challenge your mental models safely. Okay, we're going to challenge them safely. That's going to be the next one. I didn't mean for that movement to come in there. It's a little wonky. Why do I have this mental model? Where did it come from? And does this mental model still serve me? So I'm just going to give you a quick story. I was in the dorm doing laundry. Doing laundry in the dorm is not fun. You have to schlep all your clothes in a basket 5 floors down and hope that there's a washer open and hope that you have change so that you can use the washer. And I'm doing laundry and I run into this girl who I had met in the dorm, and she was doing something with her clothes that I had never seen done before. And I said, "What are you doing?" She said, I'm just putting my clothes together. And in my mind, those clothes had to be folded a certain way because that's how my mother made me do it at home. And now I'm a college freshman and I'm watching somebody do something completely different with those clothes that I had never seen happen before. And I was thinking, could I do that? Like, is that fair? Can I do that with my clothes? And I know this is really silly, but it's very simple. It's something that I learned in the dorm laundry that has completely changed my life. I don't have to fold underwear. I don't have to match socks. I don't have to do a lot of the things that I had all this muscle memory of. Laundry wasn't just hard enough schlepping down to 5th floor. Laundry was all this folding and organizing and all of these things that was no longer serving me. And so I changed it. I changed it to a different way, and I'm still doing it today because college, that's the whole point of college. You get to go do your own thing. You get to find out which mental models are still serving you. Now, with great freedom comes great responsibility. So you have to do it safely and you have to take ownership of the things you decide to do. So let's go back to the 4-minute mile. In the 1940s, they thought that 4 minutes and 1 second was the fastest somebody could run, that running a mile any faster than that was dangerous and unsafe. But on May 6, 1954, Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile barrier, and it was a really big deal, okay? Today's high school athletes do it all the time, and all of you are saying, wait, I thought this was supposed to be an essay writing workshop. Well, it is. It is, but we got to talk about muscle memory and we got to talk about mental models, because I'm trying to get you to write in a way that you have never written before. And it's going to feel weird and uncomfortable. And some of you might think it feels wrong. Some of you might think I already know this, or this won't work for me. And I'm trying to change those mental models because I know it will work. I know that you can grow, and I know that this can become something that's really going to propel you forward your senior year. So if you will just trust me and hang in there and do this with me, I promise that it works. I've seen it work. So just like folding our arms, it is said that to break a mental model is harder than splitting the atom. Okay. And these are very smart people who say things like this. Okay. It's going to be easier to split an atom than it's going to be for me to get you to do what I'm asking you to do, but I'm still going to ask you to do it. Okay. These are the steps in the writing process. If you look at rough draft, look at all the steps that you're skipping in the beginning if you sit down to write a rough draft. I don't want you to do that, okay? I don't want you to hand me a piece of paper that says, will you edit this for me? And I don't want you to sit down and write a rough draft. So let's talk about good writers versus bad writers, okay? There is no such thing in academic writing. This is academic writing. None of you are applying for an MFA in creative writing. None of you have a bachelor's degree. This is a college application essay that's written in academic writing, and academic writing is a technical skill, okay? It's not draw from the depths of your soul. So I have a whole slide deck on mental models, and I know you're dying to see all of it, but I'm only going to show you this one slide. And the reason I'm showing you this one is because it's based on the first conclusion bias. The scientific process is all based around this. If you accept your first conclusion bias, you accept erroneous results and you stop asking questions. And I don't want you to do either of those things. I don't want you to stop at unnatural, uncomfortable, weird, or wrong. I want you to move into curious, humble, and teachable. Those are the 3 words that I want your teacher saying about you when they write your letters of recommendation. So in order to do that, academic writing, its sole purpose, it has 2 purposes. 1 is to effectively communicate, and 2 is to demonstrate synthesis of learning. That's it. It uses an objective tone, and the construction is simple, concise, and predictable. Think 4th grade writing level. You don't want to be so elaborate and involved with your writing in any of these essays, because you're first and foremost, you need to be objective and you need to communicate. It's a technical skill. We're going to show it to you. It's not draw from the depths of your soul and write the great American novel. Remember, this is not an MFA in creative writing application. This is your college application essay. It's not about the writing. It's about demonstrating synthesis of learning. That's what all academic writing is about. So your synthesis of learning is your, in retrospect, what you have learned so far as a student, and you're displaying that in these essays that you're going to write for your applications. It's about the thinking and the doing. What do you do? Where do you spend your time? What do you think about it? What have you learned as a result of all that doing? This is what it's going to look like. Admissions officers will formally evaluate transcripts and spend more time on transcripts than anywhere else, including the essays. I'm taking that straight out of this book. I can show you what page it's on. On average, an admissions officer will spend anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes on your application. And if that's the longest they're spending on you, and most of that time is evaluating your transcripts, I can guarantee you that if you're using really creative literary devices in your essays, they're not going to have time to understand it. They're not going to sit cozy in a chair with your college application essay and read it as if it were entertainment. They simply do not have time. Clarity trumps creativity. Clear communication is way more important than clever or creative communication in these essays. We want to get the message across. It's got to get across, and it's got to get across fast. We want clarity and clear communication. We are not going to sit down and write a rough draft. We're going to put a lot of thought into this. We're going to use the process. And you're not going to come to either me or Miss Liz and say, will you edit this for me? Because what I want you to ask is, how's my content? And this is why. Because if you don't know what it is you're trying to communicate, I can guarantee you, you cannot write an essay about it. So you need to be spending the bulk of your time on what is it that I'm trying to say. You have to figure out what you're trying to say. So let's going back to your personal statements. This is who we are. This is me. This is Miss Liz. I'm going to introduce her right now. This is our schedule for the summer. And today we are on writing your sound bites. Miss Liz, do you want to tell us a little bit about you and who you are?
Sure. I am a director of college counseling at a private school, but my background is in college admissions and financial aid. I worked for a top 25 college as the associate director of financial aid and admissions. I have my master's degree in higher education and a graduate certificate. My master's is from Vanderbilt. My graduate certificate is from Berkeley in college admissions and career counseling. I get to work with some really amazing students in helping them find which colleges would be a great fit for them and writing their essays. And Miss Christine, and we call her Miss Christine. I was just so fortunate to have her spend some time with us at our school. We came from the same graduate program at Berkeley. So I'm glad to be here, and I look forward to working with you guys on college selections.
We're so happy to have you here, Miss Liz, and we're teaming up again this summer, helping one another student. She will look over my students' college list and make some suggestions. It's just another set of eyes going over your list before you start your essays, because if you're not applying to the right schools, then it doesn't matter how many essays you write and how great they are if the school's not going to be a good fit for you. We don't want you to become one of the 25 percenters, and those 25 percenters are the students who come home after their freshman year and they don't go back. So there's a lot of reasons for that, but a lot of those reasons boil down to it just wasn't a good fit, either socially, academically, or financially for the family. So we're trying to take all of those things into consideration as we build your list. That's where we started. That was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. All of these videos are going to be online so that you can catch up on them if you miss them. This is Writing Your Soundbite. And this is you. This is where all of you here today are from. There's actually more of you from Virginia than any other state. That's where Miss Liz and I both live, but we did pick up California and Massachusetts this last week. So we're very happy to have you all here. So the personal statement, how to create a soundbite that makes you jump off the page. This is the book. You can buy it at your favorite bookstore, wherever you prefer to buy your books. One of the things that we like about this book, and I think it's saying a lot, because I actually wrote a book about how to write your college application essays, and I still really like this book. I like her premise and how she supports it and how she talks about you writing it. If you want to get the book and work through it this week, I think that would be great. I'm going to give you a crash course, and Miss Liz is going to jump in with how she has used it as well. A soundbite is another name for what every admissions officer has to do after reading an application. It acknowledges the swiftness of the process, yet reminds us to give people something they will remember. So as admissions officers are reading through your applications, they're writing down something in your file to help them remember you. And this book is about challenging you to do that writing for them. Because anytime you can help somebody do their job, they're going to do a better job if they're trying to help you. So that's our goal here. This is a soundbite that this author wrote about one student. The SAT score is a bit low for a pre-med applicant in our pool, but his straight A record with AP Calc and AP Bio suggests he can handle the pre-med curriculum, and his responsibility of taking care of his elderly grandparent allows me to see him working with dementia patients one day in the future. Admit. Okay, here's another soundbite. Really strong test scores across the board with straight A's too, but the student doesn't distinguish himself in a sea of pre-med applicants. Deny. This is just cold, hard truth. This is just what the notes that admissions officers are making because they're getting sometimes tens of thousands of applicants. It's a grueling process. So they're taking notes on what they're seeing. We don't want you to sit back and hope for the best. We want you to write your own soundbite. And then allow that one sentence. Eventually, it might start out being longer than one sentence, but we want to get it down to one sentence. And that's going to be the one sentence that's going to guide you through your high school senior year and your college admissions process. So we want you to hang it up. It's not something that you're going to copy and paste into your college applications. It's going to go on your mirror and in your locker and maybe even on a note on your computer screen. It's a guiding principle that helps you make the best decisions when you're designing your college list and when you're filling out your activities in the Common App. So what does a soundbite look like on the page? I'm a first-generation Lebanese American who's moved many times, been separated from family, and sacrificed my youth to be able to have that dual identity. And this motivates me every day to contribute to the refugee community I once came from. I understand the mechanics of biomedical engineering from watching and experiencing my own foot surgery, and my extroverted personality welcomes new freshmen to my school and encourages my male counterparts in AP Calc to open up, come together, and collaborate. Okay, in the book, she explains that this student is female, and most of the students in her AP Calc are male, and they don't talk a lot. So she has to work really hard to get them to open up. And she goes on to describe a lot about her interest in communication that way. And she did actually ask her surgeon if she could stay awake and watch them perform surgery on her foot. There's a page in this book where the student actually asked the high school counselor to include that in the letter that the counselor wrote. So it's about layering. It's about layering things in your application, not just copying and pasting the same thing over and over and over. And this soundbite helps guide you of how to communicate with people who are helping you in this process and get some of those ideas into your application in different ways. You'll notice that these sentences are really long and they're almost always compound, complex sentences. That's because these students are cramming a whole lot into them. This one's shorter. I'm a home cook, food blogger, and community activist who uses food and cooking techniques to develop new discoveries in science, humanity, and history. These are not your soundbite. These are just examples of soundbites. These are just showing you what it could look like. What we need now is for you to find yourself on this page. So we started with that first sentence, I come from. Go back to those things that you wrote down. That's where you can get started in writing your soundbite. I come from cinnamon rolls with chunky sugar on the top that my grandmother's sisters would send to us from Sweden. Okay, things like that. Where do you come from? There's a whole list here of things that can help get you writing. Here's some prompts. What was a peak moment? What was an accomplishment that stands out as like one of the greatest things that's ever happened to you? What was one of the hardest parts of high school for you? What's a time when you took a risk? What's something that others in your circle would be surprised to learn about you? Has someone ever said something hurtful to you that you've then turned around and used in different ways? I'd be interested in hearing about that. There's some other prompts in the books that might resonate with you more. These are just the ones that I chose to show you. A soundbite equals self-awareness plus intentionality plus storytelling. So there's your formula for those of you who like formulas. It discusses critical events or experiences that catalyzed you to become who you are now, or various aspects of your identity that strongly influence how you interact with the world around you. It's an opportunity to introduce readers to your most important interests and values. Those of you who have taken a Maxwell DISC assessment with me, and I think all of you here have, you can go back to the value style and you can just draw them straight out of there. You can also find some of them in the communication section. Those arrows got a little wonky when I converted the slideshow. So look in the communication style and in the value style, and you should be able to pull some of this out of there as well. Here's another way of doing it that I have found works for students. This is a formula for a personal statement. Identify the challenge, how it affected you, what it led you to do, because if it doesn't lead you to do anything, then you really don't have anything that usable for your college application essays. You have to actually do something in order for these things to be meaningful, and then what you learned from the experience. Here's one student's answer to this as we worked through the process. The challenge was that she had to move every 2 years. It was always a new house, a new city, a new school. How it affected her is that she'd have to stand in front of a bunch of strangers in her new school and talk about a fun fact. She didn't know anybody. Learning about people's favorite pets or their favorite colors did not help her to make friends. What she really needed was an icebreaker. She needed a sense of connection with people. So because she hated the fun facts, she created what she calls icebreakers to break the ice, to help her get to know people and to make friends in a new place. And what she learned is that it helps everyone to be more outgoing, but it also helps everyone to be included. She uses it at a lunch table. It lightens situations, and she learned how important these things are. This is the personal statement that she wrote. I'm not going to read it to you, but I will post it in the notes and you can come back and read it on your own later. But I will point out that she learned how important inclusion is, because she felt excluded as the new person, and these icebreakers helped her to become included, but then they helped her help others become included. So when she boils all of this down to one sentence into a soundbite, she finds that she's a connector. She likes for people to be involved, and she likes to connect people, and she likes to be connected to people. So writing this personal statement can help you get out your soundbite, because then it can help you draw out the one sentence that the personal statement highlights. Here's another formula for you. Some students like these visual formulas where they can plug and play if they're a little stumped, if they're feeling writer's block. In all of my formulas that I give you, the gray is always the content and the blue is always the organization. So the content is always 60% of the work. The blue is always 30% of the work. And I usually hand it to you. I hand you that organization, or I help you organize, rearrange your paragraphs and your words so that they fall into a predictable academic writing formula. And then you'll notice that the 10% of editing, I'm not even showing you yet, because I don't care. I don't care if you're misspelling things. I don't care if your grammar's wrong. I don't care if your punctuation is not correct. I don't care about any of that at this stage. The only time we care about that is at the very end when we're polishing, because why go through and perfect every sentence when that sentence might get cut? And that's a muscle memory that you're going to have to break. And it's going to be really hard, especially for those of you who are good writers and really like to write. It's going to be really hard for you to write a sentence that's not perfect and then move on to the next sentence and keep moving on to get a paragraph written. It's going to be nearly impossible for you to get that done. I want you to do it anyway. I want you to write a bunch of junk, and I want it to be really messy. I just want you to get your content out. What am I trying to say? And I want you to give yourself permission to make mistakes, because that's where the beauty comes from later. I can promise you, we find those diamonds in the rough and we polish them up and they become like gold. They get you into some really great schools. Going back to the book, in general, we do not recommend writing about learning differences, mental and psychological diagnoses, Not all people are trained to deal with those issues, and you don't know that the person reading your essay will be, and we don't want to give that person that authority over you. And we don't want you to write about lower AP scores. If you have a lower AP score, don't write about it. Lead with your strength instead. Write about what you're going to bring to their campus rather than what you cannot bring to their campus. I encourage students to always write in the positives. These are some of the areas we don't want you to go. We recommend that when you finish this soundbite, and I'm going to be looking at it all week, I want you to keep sending them to me, share your Google Docs, send them to me. Once we feel like you've got it to a good place, I want you to put it where you can see it daily. It's a reminder of how you want to live your life. I want you to visualize it before you're ready to share it with others and share it openly. You can share it with me. I'm a safe place to share before you're ready to share it with the rest of the people in your life. I want you to use it when you're doing homework to prioritize your assignments. I want you to use it when you're building and finalizing your list of colleges. I want you to refer to it when you're filling out your applications, especially the activities section. I want you to use it when you're communicating with your high school teachers and counselors, especially about your letters of recommendation. If you are applying to colleges that are going to interview you, I want you to use it there. We also have a cheat sheet that we'll give you about interviews. We'll help you through that. And we want you to embrace it because it's going to become your superpower. On the word superpower, I want to invite Miss Liz to talk about what she has seen Soundbites do for students.
One of the things that I think about is a bumper sticker. And Miss Christine hit on it when she said, you want to be the one to define it. As somebody who sat around the table making decisions on admit or deny, and we would have pretty good conversations about others, but most of them went pretty fast. It was like, I don't see it. The two people read it. We both concurred it's deny, and we said deny. But by working on your sound bite or your bumper sticker, you can build your essays and your activity sheet and your whole application into a way that someone can remember you easily. And when they read your essays and your application 2 weeks ago, and since then, I mean, I was reading about 50 applications a day until about 2 o'clock in the morning. And things start to you don't remember everybody anymore. You read it, you spent time on the application, and I might have spent 3 minutes tops reading an essay. But by the time you get around that admissions table, the committee table, you've forgotten. And so by saying, oh, she's the ant girl, and I still remember one kid, this was 30 something years ago, and he tried to do a magic trick for me. It didn't work, but the way he handled how badly it went said a lot about his inner strength and willingness to work through a difficult time. So like by giving them the soundbite, they're not going to have to make it up about you because it's probably not going to be as flattering as what you can do for yourself.
Love that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you seen this work for students?
Absolutely. In fact, I did it myself. I always like to do everything myself too, just to kind of get a practice for what my kids are going to be doing. And it was enlightening. It's like there's parts of you have this idea of who you are, but until you really start writing, going through this process, it illuminates the pieces of you that are important and productive and successful, and paints you in a really good light to show the admissions committee that you can do it. It's not like you exhausted yourself in high school and you've got nothing else to give them. It gives them kind of some comfort and security in knowing that when you get to their campus, you're still going to have some mojo to go with. By distilling these kind of swirling ideas about who we are of ourselves, you can, and so I've got my soundbite right next to my computer at my work office, and I still look at it from time to kind of remind me of the things that I bring and why I can make a difference in the community around me. And that's one of the things I think that you'll start to find in your soundbite is how you as a person, your unique self, can make a positive impact on the community around you. And that's a really big part of what the college admissions people are looking for when you're applying to their school is how are you going to use you, specifically you, not the person that sits next to you, not the person you wish you could be, but really you, how are you going to use that to make a positive impact on the college community that you're going to join?
Yeah.
So I still look at mine.
And I think it's what you said is really important because it's not just why this is a good school for you. Many of you you're in the stage building your list thinking, well, this school's not going to be good for me. This school's not going to be good for me. This school's not going to be good for me. Why are you good for this school.
Yes.
What are you going to bring to their campus?
Yeah, you can imagine, applying to a job and then walking in and you're interviewing them so much to the point they're like, why did you even bother to apply? Like, what is it about us that you like? Tell me what you like about us. What are you going to like about your new home? So if you're looking for a new house, you're not going to look at the houses where it's got 4 flights of steps, but then like literally I'm in a wheelchair right now because I broke my leg. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I only had a master bedroom on the main
On the
level,
first floor.
the first floor. So, yes, it's important to think about what that school's going to do for you, but also what you're going to do for the house. John Kennedy's quote is perfect in that, that's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. But both parts of those are important at this stage in the process. You've got to do your research on the school, and then you've got to do your research on yourself. And this is that part of it.
Yes, and we are in the research phase, and we talked about that last week. And I just want to point out that on page 35 in this book, the author talks about if the only reason you're applying to our school is because of its Ivy League status or its reputation or its rankings or those kinds of common themes, you've got to do a deeper dive and you've got to dig a lot further. She says either investigate further or take it off the list.
Yeah, Ms. Christine mentioned earlier, the amount of work that you're going to do for that top tier of colleges is immense in the process. Within 20 minutes, read the mission statement online, look at the class offerings, and not just the major offerings, but what classes they offer within those majors. And the clubs. Those are the 3 top things I would say. Like, how do you see yourself getting involved academically with the classes and then socially? Because that's really is going to what starts to make it feel like home for you and can really be the difference between being happy at a campus and not.
Right, being happy or not. And also because employers, like the whole point of college is so that you can graduate and get a job that's going to pay you more money, as if so your return on investment of that college degree is a higher income than had you not gotten the college degree.
Right.
And employers who are going to pay you more money want to see that you got involved on campus. So if you're not getting involved on campus, you're not going to be an attractive hire for that company. You're probably not going to get the job.
Yeah. And you're going to be competing against other kids who did get involved and who had that experience applying to their first job.
Exactly. Okay, so let's see what else is in here. I know we're getting close to the end here. Okay, so we've given you some tools in the last few weeks. If your school uses either Score or Naviance, we encourage you to take full advantage of that. That gives you a lot of help in building your list. Here's some other websites that you can use. These are some books that we've shown you that you can use for building your college list. Here's some ways to explore majors. Now, all of you have access to what can I do with this major.com through my website. You can't just go to that website and access it. You have to come to me to get to it. So if you're having a hard time figuring that out, please let me know and I'll show you exactly where it is and how to get to it. But there's a lot of really good stuff on what can I do with this major.com, and I want you to take advantage of that. This is the book that we were using today. So we're adding this to the list of books that we want you to look at. And Miss Liz and I are going to stay around. If you have any questions, I'm going to stop the share of the slideshow, but we'll stay around if some questions come in and we'll answer them for you. And if not, or you can always email them to me later and we'll answer them for you in the next workshop or individually or whatever seems most appropriate. Don't be afraid to ask questions, because if you're thinking about it and you have a question about it, I'm sure other students in the room have the same questions.